A single burst of careless laughter shattered years of quiet sacrifice before anyone realized the man they were mocking controlled the future of the very company they worked for. The old tractor rolling slowly across the gravel yard looked like a relic from another century, its faded green paint chipped by decades of honest work, its engine rumbling with stubborn determination. Employees standing outside the company's new agricultural processing facility smiled, whispered, and exchanged amused glances as the rugged machine approached. At the center of those smiles stood the young chief executive, Maren Caldwell, whose polished appearance and confident posture reflected everything modern success was supposed to look like. She watched the aging tractor with visible disbelief, convinced it represented everything inefficient, outdated, and disposable. She had no idea that the quiet single father driving it had built the invisible foundation beneath her entire business empire. If you believe kindness is stronger than pride, forgiveness is more powerful than revenge, and everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing family that believes compassion can change lives. Gideon Mercer had never cared much about appearances. Every scratch on his tractor reminded him of another harvest completed, another difficult season survived, another promise kept to his late wife before illness stole her far too young. Since that heartbreaking day, he had raised his daughter Nora alone while expanding the small farming operation his grandparents had started generations earlier. Long before expensive technology filled the countryside, Gideon believed in honesty, reliability, and relationships stronger than contracts. His weathered tractor remained in service not because he could not afford something newer, but because it still performed every task he asked of it. He believed that throwing away dependable things simply because they looked old reflected the same attitude people often showed toward human beings. Most people around the county recognized Gideon as a hard-working farmer, but very few understood the scale of what he had quietly built. Over 20 years he had purchased struggling neighboring farms whose owners faced bankruptcy, restoring damaged soil through sustainable methods and helping local families remain employed instead of selling their land to distant investors. Instead of creating one massive corporation bearing his own name, he formed a cooperative network supplying premium grain, vegetables, and specialty crops to manufacturers across the country. His business remained intentionally humble, operating through partnerships rather than publicity. Gideon preferred shaking hands in muddy boots over standing behind microphones wearing expensive suits. Maren Caldwell had inherited leadership of Caldwell Foods after her father suffered a severe stroke that forced an early retirement. Brilliant, ambitious, and highly educated, she possessed exceptional financial instincts but lacked experience with the people whose labor actually sustained the company. Her advisors constantly encouraged modernization, aggressive expansion, and cost reduction. They praised efficiency reports, market forecasts, and polished presentations while rarely mentioning the farming communities producing the ingredients flowing into every factory. Surrounded by praise and impressive statistics, Maren slowly developed the dangerous belief that numbers mattered more than names. The company organized an appreciation event celebrating the opening of its newest processing center. Invitations had been sent to numerous suppliers, but Gideon almost missed the gathering because Nora had an important school presentation that morning. After proudly watching his daughter receive recognition for organizing a community garden helping elderly neighbors, he climbed onto the faithful tractor because it was already attached to equipment needed afterward in nearby fields. Driving the short distance directly to the facility saved valuable time. The moment Maren noticed the dusty machine crossing the entrance, embarrassment crossed her face. She worried important investors touring the facility would associate the company with outdated farming methods rather than innovation. Her expression hardened as she looked toward the driver whose worn denim jacket and faded cap contrasted sharply with the tailored clothing surrounding him. She quietly remarked to several executives that perhaps some suppliers had mistaken the event for a vintage machinery exhibition. Soft laughter spread through the group. Several employees joined in, believing they were sharing harmless amusement. Gideon heard enough to understand exactly what had happened. Years earlier such ridicule might have wounded him deeply, but life had taught him that dignity rarely depended on another person's opinion. He simply parked carefully, climbed down, dusted his hands together, and smiled politely at employees greeting other guests. No anger appeared on his face, yet a few older workers who recognized him exchanged uneasy glances. They understood something Marin clearly did not. Inside the facility, presentations highlighted production targets, expansion goals, and projected profits. Massive screens displayed colorful charts demonstrating supply chain strength without once mentioning the individuals responsible for growing the harvest itself. Marin confidently explained ambitious plans to replace numerous long-term supplier agreements with cheaper alternatives sourced through international commodity brokers. She believed reducing costs would impress investors and increase quarterly earnings. When questions opened regarding supplier stability, the procurement director hesitated before quietly revealing that one cooperative alone accounted for nearly 60% of the company's premium agricultural ingredients. That cooperative consistently delivered unmatched quality during droughts, floods, and economic uncertainty. Without it, several flagship product lines could not maintain current production standards. Marin confidently asked who managed such an important organization, assuming some nationally recognized agribusiness executive would stand and introduce himself. Instead, every eye slowly turned toward Gideon Mercer. Confusion immediately replaced confidence across Marin's face. She struggled to reconcile the humble farmer from the old tractor with the supplier sustaining much of her company's reputation. The procurement director calmly explained that Gideon's cooperative had quietly become the region's largest independent agricultural network, supplying hundreds of family farms while guaranteeing exceptional quality through relationships built over decades rather than aggressive acquisitions. The room fell completely silent, the laughter from earlier seemed painfully distant. Gideon stood without pride or bitterness. His calm expression remained unchanged as he briefly described the cooperative's mission of protecting local farming families while producing food worthy of consumers' trust. He spoke about soil health, fair wages, responsible stewardship, and honoring commitments even during years when profits disappeared. He never mentioned the disrespect outside. He simply thanked everyone for inviting him before sitting quietly once more. For the first time since becoming chief executive, Marin realized how little she truly understood about the business she believed she controlled. The following weeks became increasingly difficult. Acting on recommendations from consultants, Marin proceeded with her cost-cutting strategy despite growing doubts. Several new suppliers promised dramatically lower prices, but almost immediately deliveries arrived inconsistent in quality. Processing delays increased. Customer complaints multiplied. Retail partners questioned declining standards. Production managers who had once praised cheaper contracts now struggled daily with shortages and rejected shipments. Meanwhile, Gideon's cooperative fulfilled every remaining obligation professionally, refusing to exploit the company's growing difficulties. He instructed his management team to continue meeting agreed commitments because hundreds of employees depended on steady factory operations. Personal pride, he believed, should never punish innocent workers. Nora watched her father spending long evenings reviewing paperwork instead of resting after exhausting days in the fields. She knew the company had reduced future purchase volumes and understood many neighboring farmers feared losing dependable income. Though still young, she had inherited her father's remarkable compassion. Rather than expressing resentment, she encouraged him to keep treating others fairly because people often learn the greatest lessons after making painful mistakes. One sunny afternoon, Marin unexpectedly visited several farms supplying Caldwell Foods. For the first time she walked across freshly planted fields instead of polished conference rooms. She met elderly couples who had survived impossible seasons because Gideon's cooperative guaranteed fair prices when markets collapsed. She listened to young families explain how shared equipment programs organized by Gideon allowed small farms to compete without overwhelming debt. Everywhere she traveled, people spoke less about profits than about trust. Every conversation slowly dismantled assumptions she had carried for years. She eventually reached Gideon's farm where the same old tractor rested beneath a large oak tree after another morning's work. Looking closely, she noticed meticulous maintenance hidden beneath weathered paint. The machine reflected not neglect but respect. It had been repaired countless times instead of discarded because Gideon valued responsibility over appearance. Walking through the property, she observed organized barns, healthy livestock, thriving crops, and employees whose smiles revealed genuine loyalty rather than obligation. The farm operated with quiet excellence, lacking expensive displays yet overflowing with purpose. Gideon welcomed her politely despite remembering every laugh from that first meeting. He offered fresh lemonade prepared by Nora and patiently answered every question about agriculture, sustainability, and supplier relationships. He never embarrassed Marin by revisiting her earlier judgment. His restraint weighed heavier on her conscience than anger ever could have. As afternoon sunlight stretched across golden fields, Marin finally admitted she had confused sophistication with wisdom and appearance with value. She confessed that she had been so determined to modernize the company she forgot businesses ultimately depended upon human beings whose dedication could never be measured solely by spreadsheets. She apologized sincerely, not merely for mocking the old tractor but for failing to respect the people behind the work. Gideon listened quietly before explaining that every generation inherited opportunities to choose what kind of leaders they wished to become. Real leadership, he believed, meant making others feel seen instead of insignificant. Machines eventually wore out. Buildings aged. Financial records faded into history. Character remained long after success disappeared. Those words stayed with Marin long after she drove away. Over the following months, Caldwell Foods transformed in ways investors initially failed to understand. Supplier meetings moved from luxury hotels to farming communities. Executives spent regular days working alongside growers to understand real challenges. Contracts rewarded quality, sustainability, and long-term partnerships instead of demanding impossible price reductions. Employee appreciation expanded beyond office staff to include truck drivers, mechanics, field workers, and seasonal laborers whose efforts had often gone unnoticed. The financial results surprised even skeptical analysts. Product quality improved. Customer loyalty strengthened. Waste declined because trusted suppliers communicated openly about challenges before problems became crises. The company earned recognition not merely for profitability but for ethical partnerships benefiting entire communities. At the annual appreciation gathering 1 year later, the same gravel entrance welcomed guests beneath bright afternoon sunshine. Once again Gideon arrived driving the faithful old tractor. This time employees applauded before he even climbed down. Children attending with their families eagerly surrounded the machine, fascinated by its history. Marin personally greeted Gideon and Nora with genuine warmth, introducing them to every new executive as examples of integrity, resilience, and quiet leadership. Instead of hiding the tractor from visitors, the company displayed a photograph of it inside the headquarters alongside a simple inscription reminding everyone that true value often arrives wearing dusty boots rather than polished shoes. New employees learned the story during orientation, not to embarrass anyone but to encourage humility before making assumptions about others. Nora later earned a scholarship for agricultural science, inspired by her dream of helping family farms thrive through innovation rooted in compassion rather than greed. Gideon watched proudly as his daughter combined modern knowledge with timeless values, proving that honoring the past never prevented embracing the future. Marin often reflected on how one careless moment of pride nearly cost her company its most valuable relationship. She realized success built on respect proved far stronger than success built on appearances. Every important decision afterward began with one simple question she asked herself before approving any proposal: would this honor the people whose hands make our success possible? The answer guided her far better than any consultant ever had. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Before you go, tell us in the comments, have you ever discovered that someone you underestimated became the person who taught you life's greatest lesson? Your story may encourage someone else to look beyond appearances. As the warm afternoon sun settled gently across endless fields of ripening grain, the old tractor rolled steadily home once again, still carrying faded paint, still humming with faithful strength, and still reminding everyone who saw it that genuine greatness rarely announces itself with luxury. It grows quietly through years of honesty, sacrifice, humility, forgiveness, and unwavering kindness until one ordinary day the entire world finally learns to see what was valuable all along.